So let's get going. Excuse me. I don't know why that keeps showing up, but for some reason it does. And now what's happened to my poll? Here we go. Okay. Oh, my macro. It showed up the last time. I don't know why. Anyway, the discussion today is the 5 pillars for B2B marketing and sales success. And I want to go through this because it is, the whole thing will take about an hour. And this is a very, very big subject because a lot of people struggle with it, and particularly B2B. I mean, this could help some B2C people, but B2B is a lot more complicated and sophisticated than the B2C is. So let's go through and get started on it. The 5 pillars for B2B marketing sales success. Today's topics. First of all, I'm going to discuss, you may be wondering, who is this guy Dainty anyway? And so I want to go through that just briefly and give you a little background on me so you understand where I come from and why I'm able to present this. I want to talk briefly about what are the 4 ways to increase revenue. There's only 4 ways that you can increase revenue in B2B, and I want to discuss those briefly because it leads right into the program. Then we're going to talk about the 5 pillars of B2B marketing and sales success. I'm going to tell you about a coaching program I've got briefly, and I think you may be interested in that. And then we'll have a question and answer period for anybody that has any questions. A little background on me, and that's me with my smiling face in the right-hand corner there, right-hand side. I started my business career with IBM a long, long, long time ago. And I was with IBM maybe 5 or 6 years when I left and started and owned and operated 3 of my own businesses since then. I've sold 2 of them successfully. They were, one of them, the first one I had was a multi-million-dollar business. It was around $22.5 million when I sold it. So it was in pretty good shape. The second one, not quite so high. Sold it in the around 2002, 2003. And then I started coaching, and I've been helping thousands of sales marketers, executives, and business owners since then increase their sales and revenue, and show them how to market better so they do get more revenue and faster revenue. I've created $1 million in revenue for my own clients as well as my own companies, so help them do that. I'm not doing a very good job here, am I? And I've been coaching for about the past 22 years or so. So it's around 1992 I started really getting coaching seriously. I've broken off a couple of times in between to help some companies individually and sort of gave up it and then got back into it, particularly the last 10. So that's my background. So what are the 4 ways to increase revenue? I've lost my screen here again. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. What are the 4 ways to increase revenue? Well, obviously, you get more clients, you get more revenue. If you get more business from your current clients, you can get more revenue, assuming you don't lose business from them. You can increase your prices and fees, and we're going to talk about all of that stuff will come into play today, or you can buy another company. We're not going to talk about that, but that is another way to get more revenue, and you know, a lot of companies do that, and you see all the big ones, but a lot of small companies will do that too. So what are the 5 pillars for B2B marketing and sales success? Well, there they are. One is the foundation. I'm going to go through that. I'm going to go through all of these in some detail today, and that's really what it's going to be about. Then there's the process. The foundation, of course, is what do you need to get yourself going? What's the basement? If you build a house, you need the foundation, the basement. Then what are the processes that you need to understand and the people in those processes? What marketing elements should you be using in B2B in particular? What selling elements should you use? And then I'm going to talk about account management, which of course is getting more getting more business from your current customers. So pillar number 1 is the foundation. And the foundation starts with what, for B2B success, you need to know your ideal client company, okay? You need to understand your ideal client company. You need to know your ideal client personas. And who's the individual within each company that you're going to deal with. You know your client goals, and I'm going to talk about this a bit. Know your client issues. Now, people will say, you know, right off, you got to know your client issues, and that's very important. But I'm going to tell you why you need to know your client goals too, because that's how you can get involved in the process a lot easier. know your value proposition, know your differentiators, and know your competition. So that's these are the foundation blocks that you need for B2B success. I'm going to talk about each one of these as we go through. So what does your ideal client company look like? It could be looking like this, where it's a, maybe it's a modern type of business, and this is the type of business they're in, and it's an agency, or, started by a bunch of young kids, and they're, it's a Facebook type business. Anyway, it could be something like that. So is that what you're looking for? It could be maybe people are running it out of a basement of a house, or they've rented a house or something, and hopefully it looks a little better than that, not ready to fall down. But, that's the type of business it could be. It could be in an office tower where it's quite a big business, and maybe there's more than one office tower. Maybe they're spread out across the country, and it's quite a large company. Or it could be a corner store, which you sell, so you're selling to other businesses, a whole bunch of corner stores maybe you're selling to, and each one has 4 or 5 or 6 employees, and you're selling to that. So as you can see, you've really got to define who your client company is so you can understand from that how you're going to sell to them. Next is, what does your ideal client person look like, or as sometimes they're called, is buyer personas. Now it could be, as I mentioned before, some hip young guy, and this is the business they're in, and this is the way they dress. A lot of technology companies do that now, but they could be quite a large company, because a lot of young guys like that have large companies. It could be the suit, as people call them. It could be a guy that's in a CIO role, CEO role, and this is how they dress, because depending on the business, it could be quite a large business, and they need to talk to a number of people, so they get dressed up. It may be a woman that's running the company, and there's certainly a lot of women running companies these days, which is great news, and maybe she's a casual dresser too, or it could be the woman in the suit who runs a larger company, or the woman on the left could also run a larger company, but depending on their client base could depend on how they dress. So you need to know your ideal client persona. What does this person look like? What do they do, so that when you do some content, you can talk not past them, but to them, and understand who they are. What are your ideal client's goals? Now, you need to understand what the goals are for your ideal client, so that you can get personal with them. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit too, because if you get personal with somebody and you get to the emotion side of it, you got a much better chance of closing the sale. So a lot of the times their biggest goal is they want to grow. They want to increase their shareholder value if you're talking to the owners of a company. Or maybe they want to become more productive. I'm going to talk a little bit about that too in a little bit when we get through the process of it. But what is their goal? What do they want to do? And that's how you get personal to them and how you relate back to them as you go through your questioning process. And then from their goals, what you want to do is, what issues are they facing in reaching their goals? As opposed to saying what keeps you up at night. And CEOs and CXOs don't want to hear that anymore. They want to know that you know what keeps them up at night based on your own experiences with either other clients or from the research you've done. But what you want to do is ask them, so-and-so client has this issue. Is that an issue with you? What issues are you facing in trying to reach your goals? That's a really good question to ask them. And so here's some of the issues that some of the clients face is access to capital. And that's a big one for companies that any company of any size, getting the right capital to grow, and that's why venture capitalists are around, and banks and everybody else. Everybody needs money to grow. So that could be an issue. Maybe you can help them with that. Maybe they're having trouble finding the right people. If you're in the search business or the staffing business, you can help them. If you know your business, help them find the right people. And that's an issue for everybody these days. Growth, as I mentioned, is always an issue. People want to keep growing so that they can increase their shareholder value and they can become a better company. Maybe it's the economy that's holding them down. And that's certainly been true since 2008. The economy has dragged everybody down. It's not, it's still bouncing around. I live in Canada, and you don't know, although we've done fairly well, we're still on a bumpy road. We're still not going through things like, big growth rates. We're at 1.2%. Sometimes we hit 2% or 1.8%. but it's nothing like it used to be. Sometimes it's government relations, government rules that'll bring you down. So there's all kinds of things that can impact what issues are your companies face. The next thing you need to know is, what is your ideal client's unique value proposition? You got to help them, or you must understand what it is, what is your unique value proposition, so that when you talk to your ideal clients, it fits into what their issues are and what their goals are. The first thing you want to do, obviously, is our value proposition is you want to talk to them about their target market. This is what we do. This is part of maybe what you could call your elevator speech, but this is what your client market, you have to understand that, as I mentioned. What issues do they face, okay? You don't necessarily talk to them about who you talk to, but you want to know what issues they face. What are the big issues that your clients face? And therefore, what is your solution to those issues? How are you going to help them achieve their goals by resolving their issues? You tell them what your solution is and what the benefits they receive from that. Not the features, that's your solution. What are the benefits they get? You must give social proof. And I'm going to talk about social proof a little later in the presentation. Social proof is one of the biggest sellers you can get. There's a saying that people believe what others say about you, but don't really believe what you say about you. So you want to have the social proof, and you want to give the benefits of that. And then, of course, what differentiates you from your competition. You must know your competition, what differentiates you. Maybe one thing, it may be half a dozen things. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. So what you want to know is, who is your competition? I hear people say, I don't have any competition. Everybody has competition. And a lot of times today, in the connected world, you don't even know who your competition is a lot of times. They may be coming in from a side flank, as they say in the, in the war type terminology, where you come in from the sides as opposed to the front. There may be competition doing that you don't even know about. So you've got to try and figure out who your competition is. And one way of doing it is, of course, ask your client when you're talking to them. But you've got to do research on this and really find out who your competition is and understand them. So pillar number 2 is the process. Well, let's look at the factors in the process. There's the factors that affect the buy. What are the factors that affect people for buying within their own city? There's 5 buying stages. I'm going to go through each one of these. Social proof, as I mentioned before, I want to spend a little bit of time on that, telling you or going through what is social proof. Why do B2B companies buy? There's 5 reasons they buy, and I want to go through that. And then there's 5 influencers. Now, I've written a white paper on the 4 influencers, but in the last couple of years, another influencer has popped up and is a very important influencer, and you have to know about who these influencers are. So let's look at each one of these and see what factors affect each one. Business factors affecting the B2B buying process. Well, there's the immediate business situation. You can understand that by going to their website, by typing in their business, typing in the CEO's name or the CXO, whoever you're dealing with, and it'll probably give you some news about what's going on in that company. You must understand their immediate business situation. Or if they're in your market, which you should be doing, is going after one particular market, unless you're a bigger company and you've spread out, but then you should have a division that goes after particular markets. What are the business situations affecting those markets right now? Okay, as an example, the airline industry may be people are a little nervous because of what's happened with the Malaysian airline. Although there's, as I hear, there's 1,100 of those Boeing 777s in the air at any one time. But that's a business situation. Of course, in 2008, we had the meltdown of the economy, and it still hasn't come back. So what is each company's business situation? How can you change that situation? What are you going to bring to the table, knowing the goals, knowing the issues that they're facing? What does your product or service do to change that situation? What results will your prospect get that will change that situation? What results do they want to achieve? Again, that's why you get back to goals as opposed to just solving issues. Ask what their goals are, because that's really what they want to achieve. Sure, the issues are in the way and they want to get rid of those issues, but they really want to achieve goals. And I'll keep harping on that. What's the dollar amount of the sale? That can really affect the buying situation. If you're selling something that costs a couple $100, maybe even only $1,000 for a year as an example, it's not a big amount. There won't be a lot of people. But if you're selling something that costs, say, $10,000 or more per year, then you're going to get more people. If it costs millions of dollars per year, depending on your product or service, if it's a product like an ERP system, enterprise resource planning system, then of course that's going to cost millions of dollars. So the dollar amount affects the buying situation. What does your prospect or client have any experience with your firm? How long has that gone? How big is the dollar? All of these things affect your selling your product. What's the experience with the product or service you're offering? Maybe you're just you're going to throw out an incumbent. So they've got some experience, but they don't like the way the incumbent's growing. They haven't changed their product or service. You've got a much better product or service. So do they have any experience with your product or service? That affects it. What's the organizational impact? Does it just affect a few people? Does it affect a whole department? Does it affect the whole organization like an ERP system? So all of these things, and this is one a lot of people forget about. What are the internal politics going on right now that are affecting your particular product or service and how you're trying to sell it? So you can see, as I mentioned, this is a very sophisticated, complex process. You must know these things. And again, depending on the size of your, the impact or the amount of dollar sale, when I say size, I mean, you know, how much does your product or service cost? All of these things affect the buying process within your client and prospect organization. And now there's 5 buying stages that you've got to be aware of in B2B. The first one is, I'm going to achieve my goals, but I'm okay, so I don't have any issues. Well, if they don't have any issues, then say goodbye and just keep in touch. But they have to agree they have a problem. And of course, this is one thing we all run into, just a simple one, excuse me, when you're, you may have a problem. Let's say with your computer is slow. So you got a problem, but your second stage is I want to solve the problem. They may have a problem, but they don't think it's big enough to solve it. What you can do with number 1 is you can agitate that problem with emails, with your content, which we'll talk about in a sec. So agitate the problem so they can see what will happen if they don't fix it. So once they see they want to solve the problem, then they start evaluating alternatives. And this is where the 5th influence is going to come in, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Then, of course, once they've evaluated the alternatives, they'll break it down into a short list of maybe 3, 5, or depending what it is, might even be up to 7 suppliers. Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 5 suppliers, and you want to get on that. And there's certain ways that you can do that. And then, of course, there's a renewal where they'll buy more from you. So these are the 5 buying stages that B2B clients go through. They're fairly simplified, I know, and there's a lot more that goes into each one of these. But the real key is you must understand these stages. And, of course, the buying process looks something like this. 4 stages they go through. First of all, there's discovery. They decide they want to solve the problem, so now they're going to go through a discovery stage. And that's where these things at the bottom that you need on your website and that, where there's your blogs, you're talking to them on social media, you need that. Then they become aware of what different products and services are out there through their discovery stage, and that's when you should be giving them white papers and ebooks and maybe a kit, evaluation kit, a how-to video, and videos are huge now. We'll talk about that a bit. Educational webinar, all of these things are important. Now they're going to evaluate who they're and break it down into a short list. So that's when you need things like a product webinar, a case study, frequently asked questions, data sheets, demo videos. And then to make a decision, you may want to give them a free trial or a live demo, consultation with them. Depending on the size of what you're selling, again, when I say size, dollar amount, effect of the corporation, etc., you might want to give them an estimate. If they sign up now, maybe you're going to give them a discount, and then maybe you have to do a proposal. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. One of the other things that affect the buying process, of course, is social proof. So what is social proof and why do you need it? Well, social proof is a huge effector on people buying your business. As I mentioned before, people believe, like 95% of people believe what other people say about you, and maybe 5%, and I think these 5% are just being nice, believe what you say about yourself. Excuse me. That's why ads are breaking down, although I still think you can run ads. But, you know, when somebody gets up there, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. But if you get somebody else saying, that's why you see weight loss ads, they get real people saying, this is what I look like, and now here's what I look like. So that's social proof, case study type of social proof. And case studies are important, particularly in B2B, because it is sophisticated. Did other people have my problem? I want to find out. So you got to show what the problem is and my issue. And then what did I do to try and solve it? What was my solution? What results did I get when I worked with this person? So these are case studies. Testimonials. And this is where it's really key to get testimonials. There's one thing you need in testimonials, and that's numbers. You know, we all have testimonials. You know, I get them. Gee, I worked with Ian, and he was terrific, and he really helped me. But, you know, if everybody says that, they go, well, what has he really done for me? So what you want in testimonials are numbers. Now, it's very difficult if you can get it, and I got to promote. If somebody could say, Ian helped me do this, here's the result we got. We increased our revenue by 25% in a year over what we predicted, and I got a promotion. Very few people are going to say I got a promotion, but they may say he helped us increase revenues by 25%. And in fact, I helped triple a company's client base in 18 months through doing through my the process I go through, and that was and that's on my website, as you'll see. Authority. Do you work with anybody that's in authority? And particularly, let's say you're a technology company and you've got a partnership with IBM or with Microsoft or with Cisco or something like that. That's an authority, and people are saying, oh, if they're working with somebody like that, then they must be pretty good at what they're doing. If IBM or Microsoft is going to work with these people, or Cisco, then they really know what they're doing. So if you have an authority that people recognize, put that on your website. And a guarantee. Now this is where very, very few people, very few B2B technology companies do, or even B2B companies of any kind, professional services companies, or any type of service you provide. You can provide a guarantee, even if it is a service, even if it is a product, if it's written up properly. And I can help you with that. I've worked on guarantees, and when I talk about the coaching that I'm talking about later, I give a guarantee. You must give a guarantee, and there are certain ways to do that in B2B that don't put you at a huge risk where you work with the client on it, but you should give a guarantee. That makes you stand apart from your competitors. Particularly if you're going up against big competitors, this is what you need to do. So that's social proof. Now, why do B2B companies buy? Well, there's 5 reasons B2B companies buy. One is improved performance. What does that mean? Well, it means that they get an increase in revenue or profits. Perhaps they get a decrease in, you can give them a decrease in expenses or costs. A lot of companies that, do that when you give them better productivity, and that's an improvement in productivity. So that's improved performance. Maybe you give them more opportunities by what your product does. Maybe by putting your product in or service, they can build new products. Maybe they can enter new markets or a totally new business. Or maybe they can expand their own business by what your product does. Maybe it's a machine that lets them expand their own business. Gives them a competitive advantage. Now, this is Jack Welch, who was the CEO of General Electric for years. And if you don't have a competitive advantage, then don't compete, right? So what is a competitive advantage you can give your clients, your prospects? Differentiation. You need differentiation. Maybe your product or service can give them a differentiation. A lower cost. Can your product or service give them a lower cost? And can you allow them to enter niche markets or newer markets that maybe they haven't been in before? So what can your product or service do in niche markets for them? Risk mitigation. Now, there's 2 things risk mitigation does. I love this one. You should see the new management consultant we hired. He's going to make all our risks disappear. He's got pulling a rabbit out of a hat. There's 2 types of risks. One is, of course, possibly a security risk. so that if you sell a security product, and we all need it now, we all need a firewall, we all need to stop viruses coming into our computer, so we all need those type of things. Which one's better? Which one works okay? I use a product named ESET, E-S-E-T, and I think it works really well. There's all kinds of them out there. The other type of risk is, depending on the size, or the impact rather, the cost of your product and the impact on the organization, there's a risk to the organization of implementing your product or service. My product is an impact because I'm going to make people change the way they do business to get more revenue. So there's an impact on that. An impact that changes things causes a risk. So when you do that, you've got to show them how you mitigate that risk, how you work with them on mitigating that risk, how you have your team work with their team to mitigate that risk, excuse me, and how you make them understand that by possibly social proof or stepping them through the process, etc. This is where your account executive, your account manager, key account manager, I'll talk about that in a sec too, can really play a big role. Okay, so understand that. Now there's one more that why B2B people buy and what they can get out of it, and that is personal wins. And we forget about those, but that's why you ask about goals. You want to ask companies, the people you're talking to, about their goals. What are personal wins? Well, they're things like they could remain in power. They could get more power. They could get more leisure by what you do because they get more time off. They could increase their self-esteem by what you do. Increase their personal productivity, perhaps increase their own development by what you do. They could be seen as a leader or a problem solver. Gain recognition by implementing yours. So there's improve their social status. Pursue a certain lifestyle because they'll get more time off. What are the personal wins that you can get? And this is where you really need to question your own client base and find out what their personal wins are. And there's a way to do that. And it's a bit of a tricky way to do it, but I've developed a sure way to do that. And it really is something that you've got to work on to get those wins. But once you know those wins, that's when you can talk to executives about how they can achieve them. Excuse me, just getting a drink of water there. So this is very, very important. The other four are important too, but you need to understand that this is a key. This is why you ask them what their particular goals are. You want to know what their goals are. Okay. So now, who are the 5 influencers in a B2B sale? So you got to know these too. Well, I'm going to go through the first 4 because the first is a check signer. Then there's the people who use your product or service. Check signer is sometimes called the economic buyer. Then there's gatekeepers. You got to get through them. And then there's a champion. And you have to know all of these, and it's important to know all of these in any situation. So let's look at the check signer. You may recognize this young man. He's 85-year-old Warren Buffett, and he's signed a few checks in his life. But he's a person who can influence you in any company, obviously, if you got to know him. So what does the check signer look like? Well, the check signer is the person who gives final approval. They're the most important person. They're not the only important person, but they're the most important. They will ask, who does this solution affect? Your product or service. Who does it affect? How big an effect does it have on the corporation? Does the company need to change? We talked about that just previously. Does the company need to change? Is there an implementation process that'll affect, and we have to do different things? Are the changes good for the company? This is where you get your social proof, where they are. This person has direct access to funds and can release funds and has a discretionary use of funds. Okay, it's important to understand that maybe it's not in the budget, but if you can convince them that this is an important part of what they need to do, then they can get at those funds. And they also have veto power, so understand that. Like the President of the United States has veto power, they can veto anything. If they don't think it's because one of the reasons that they do that, the check signer is a CXO, many times a CEO, but maybe they have other things going on. Even though you have a great impact on their company, your product will have a big positive impact. Maybe they're looking at acquisition mode right now, or maybe they're trying to sell the company, and so they're not going to do anything like that. And the person, if you're going too low in the organization, that person won't know. That's why you call on this person first. Okay, there's a person you call on first. So that's the first influencer. The second one is the users. And of course, they're the people who use or supervise your solution. They have it's personal to them. So it's understand that this is where it's personal to the check signer too. They have a direct link to your success because they're going to use your products or service, so it's important that they're successful with it. So you must understand that. They're a very important group, and they have a big influence on it. You will find the check signer will not impose something on them unless there's a real important reason, maybe security, or there's a huge productivity gain, something like that. They have a big influencer with the check signer usually because usually it's a VP you're dealing with. You're going to interface with these people before, during, and after. During, of course, is the implementation, and afterwards to make sure that they're doing it well, to make sure that your product or service is performing the way you said it would. You need to get to know the senior vice presidents of these groups, of the user group. Maybe it's a CIO or the chief marketing officer, chief sales officer, chief operations officer, whoever it is. Get to know the COO, COO of that group. Okay? Gatekeepers are another one you need to know. And this is the one I like. Gatekeepers, to me, they basically say, tell you you're wrong. And they are very important to understand, too. They judge the measurable aspects of your proposal or whatever you're presenting to them. And the way they do that, they are usually giving, and I like to call them box tickers, they're giving some metrics from the users and the check signer saying, here's what the organization looks like, here's what we need in a product. I'm going to talk about how they get that in a sec. And so what they do is, and you'll get this through all of it, and I'll talk about who they are. Particularly in RFPs, you'll get it. And I'm not a big fan of RFPs, but if you're working with governments, you've got to answer RFPs. They can recommend it based, on the boxes they tick off. They can't say yes, but they can say no. So they could say, no, you shouldn't go to the check signer. You shouldn't go with this company, and here's why. And unless you've got the ears of the check signer, then they can really, they'll kibosh your proposal. And here's the types of people that you're dealing with. Finance, legal, inside, outside the organization, HR, IT, engineering, operations. These are all people that can affect, are gatekeepers and can affect whether you're going to get in, whether your proposal is going to work or not, or your product service. And everybody talks about the executive administrator who blocks you from getting to see the CEO. And there are ways to get around that. I'm not going to spend time right now on it, but there's a myriad of ways that you can get around that particular person, the executive admin. But the other gatekeepers are the big ones that you've got to deal with. Okay? A champion. Now, this is a person that a lot of people forget about. And usually it's a person who is very influential, fairly senior person, and we'll go through what the champion looks like. This is a person that sponsors your proposal because he or she, knows you. They could be inside or outside the corporation. Maybe they're an industry guru. It is not someone lower in the company. It has to be somebody who's higher up in the company and has the ear of the check signer. And of course, you can guess who your best champion is. That is the check signer, the person who can free up the funds for your product or service. Excuse me. He knows why your prospect is buying. He understands your prospect, has access to all the buying influencers, the check signer, the user, the gatekeepers, and we'll talk about the fifth influencer in a sec. Will lead to each of the buyer's wins. Okay, what are the personal aspects? Because he knows or she knows everybody within that organization. It's important to understand that. And they're a power broker. Maybe they're an up-and-comer within that organization and they have the ear of the check signer. Maybe you can find that person. The best way to do, obviously, is go to the check signer. The most important, the CXO, go and talk to that person first. They're going to send you to the user groups. Maybe they'll send you to your champion. Okay? And there are a bunch of different ways you can find this champion, and we don't have time to go through them all here, but my coaching program will help you do this. You've got to understand that. Now there's a fifth influencer, and this influencer has become very important in today's internet world. Oh, I keep doing this. Here we go again. Okay. And they're called researchers. And researchers have sprung up everywhere now. And why are they there? Well, over 88% of companies search for you now. Sorry, 80. I think that's probably closer to 90. 80% is kind of last year's, and I think it'll be very close to 100% soon. So more and more companies search for you now before you even know they're looking. So, and they're over 50% of the way through their buying process before you know they're looking. I've had a number of people find me through my website, through a Google search, and they want to buy right away, a lot of them, or they do, and most of them I close within a week or so. So they're 50% of the way through their buying process before you even know they're looking. And the other thing you got to remember is senior executives very, very seldom answer their phone anymore because of call display and voicemail, and very few of any of them ever return voicemails. Cold calls really are really dead. I've talked to people who still cold call. I know there's a lot of companies that still do that, and they get a 2 to 3% rate on that. So for every, and that's just to get some kind of appointment. And a lot of times I've seen talk to people who use cold callers, and when they do call the appointment, the person they call doesn't know what they're calling about. So it's very bad to use cold calls. You can use emails, and I'll talk about that. But if you've got a product or service they may not be aware of, and you use that to the senior executive, you got to write the email properly too. So you must understand that the researchers are searching for you. That's why your website is so important. We'll talk about that a bit too. Researchers usually one person to several people. They're usually appointed by the CXO, a lot of times the check signer. They're from different departments, finance, IT, HR, just like the gatekeepers are. So a lot of them are gatekeeper type people, similar to gatekeepers and users, and a combination of the two where they work together. They have a set of criteria they're looking at. That's what they're searching for when they're doing this. So that's why it's important on your website to make sure you understand what people look for and what they want in your business, and that you have that on your website. They have a set of criteria, just like an RFP, and they are a big influence on who the prospector is going to buy from. It's usually only in the initial search, and another product or service, or there may be other people, and they will make recommendations. Again, like gatekeepers and users, there's usually a user group and a gatekeeper group. Finance, because they've got to see they got the money, and again, these are people who are going to find you. And that can be big because at least they know this is what you call sort of the low-hanging fruit. But keeping in mind that you're going to have a lot of competition in this. And so what you want to do is try and get the check signers and people from an outgoing way of sending emails, etc. But you do need to understand this group is there, and you have to deal with them. All right, pillar number 3, marketing elements in the B2B marketing world, make you successful. So there's a whole bunch of marketing elements, and I'm sure you're familiar with some. Your biggest marketer right now is your website, and content marketing is huge right now, as you know. What is the content you put on your website? A lot of it's through your blog, where you talk to, you put up what they call, what your thoughts are, what people are looking for, what questions they might have, why would they choose you. So your blog is really important. You should be blogging minimum 1 time a week, and you should try and get and spread your blog out. You should try and be selling your blog through social media. Your content also on your website. What do you do with your products? Case studies, testimonials, authority, all of those things need to go on your website. And I see so many bad B2B websites. They haven't been updated since 2010. If you haven't updated your website since in the last 2 years maximum, it should have been in the last year, then you're probably losing a lot of business. So what are some of the? LinkedIn is a great one. It's a professional network for B2B buyers mostly, and B2B professionals. You need to be on LinkedIn. You need to have the right professional profile. YouTube is huge. More and more executives, as you read it, are looking at YouTube videos for business. You'd be surprised what they look at for business. You need to learn to put videos together and put them on YouTube. Twitter is becoming bigger and bigger too. And you need to be on Twitter, and you need to do this yourself. Even if it's only once a day or once every 2 days, you need to be on Twitter yourself. There's a story about a guy, a senior executive, who went to a conference, and somebody come up and said, "Oh, I've been reading all about the information you put on Twitter. I really like it. You made a comment about such and such. What do you think about it?" and the senior executive wasn't the one who put the information up on Twitter. He had somebody else do it, and he was very embarrassed. So you got to do Twitter yourself, but it's important in today's B2B connected world. Google Plus is another one. Why is it big? Well, because Google owns it, obviously, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger and more important B2B platform, a social media platform to use. And if you're on Google Plus, Google likes that better when people search, so you got a better chance of showing up in their search results. Email is huge. No matter what anybody tells you, email is huge to use, but you got to do it well. Webinars are big. Webinars like this is an example. Give people content. I hope you're getting some good content out of this and understand how content is important and how you can deliver it through a webinar like this. And I still believe advertising is important. Pay-per-click ads in particular, LinkedIn, Google. You notice I haven't mentioned Facebook here. I'm not really sold on Facebook. Some people are. It depends on how big, what you're selling to. If you're selling to consultants or smaller companies, then Facebook can be big, and you can run pay-per-click ads, and a lot of people are been very successful on Facebook with pay-per-click ads. But Google search is still really big, and so is LinkedIn, and these are all important. I'm not going to step through a lot of these now. I do that with my coaching program, but you can see how sophisticated the B2B marketplace is and what you have to be doing. So that's the B2B marketing elements that the minimum you need. These are mandatory. Pillar number 4 is the B2B selling elements. The first thing you need to do in selling is qualify. I've developed a thing I call the GAIM plan, which stands for goals, afflictions, impact, and meaning. And I'm not going to go through all that, but remember I mentioned that goals, you first of all ask for goals. That is how you get people involved. You don't know their goals. Maybe you can find them. You may say, as opposed to saying what your goals are, you may say to the client, what is it you're trying to achieve this year? What's the most important thing to you right now? Everybody loves to talk about their goals. They want to tell you what they want to achieve. If you go in and say, what issues are you running into right now? I mean, it's too salesy type of things. Talk to them about their goals. And then say, well, are you having trouble reaching those goals? What issues are you running into? That's how you flow through into the issues. You see how easy that can be, how much easier it is? How to give demos is really part of a selling element that your salespeople and your sales managers need to know. How to avoid proposals. I hate writing proposals. I don't know about you. I hate writing proposals. If you can get in and do this properly, you can avoid them. You can't avoid them all the time. You can't avoid them in government. And some people will just do an RFP, particularly if they find you first, as I mentioned. So you're going to have to know how to write proposals too, and there are good and bad ways to write proposals. How to close. These are all selling elements. You've got to know how to close. The old ABC, always be closing. I don't necessarily agree with that now in today's world, but you still have to ask questions properly. Just need another drink. Thanks. You got to know how to close. What questions do you ask? You've got to build a relationship with your clients through the knowledge base that you know, and you've got to understand the importance of your key account managers. If you're a key account manager, you must understand all of this. And if you're an executive, you must know the importance of it. I talked to a lot of executives. I interviewed a lot because I wanted to find out their buying process. I ran a Chief Information Officer, CIO network a number of years ago. And I called up about a dozen of them and asked them, and with every one of them said the most important thing in closing a deal was the account manager of the company they were talking to. So you must understand that, the importance of a key account manager, and therefore the 5th pillar, strategic account management. You've got knowledge requirements and what does that mean? Well, knowledge requirements, these are the things that key account managers must know. You must understand your industry and your client and the industry and client research. And that includes industry research, obviously, knowledge of clients, their operations, their markets, the technology, the relationships, competitive information on your clients. You must understand the opportunities in your clients, future client projects, opportunity specs. You need this client management framework, which talks about you need a client knowledge repository for your business. This is where your CRM comes in, but most CRMs don't allow you to do this, so you got to get one that does. What's your relationship management? Because this is really important, your relationship. What's the industry and the client point of view on certain issues? Excuse me. The opportunity management. What's their technology? What do they use? What team have they got that you need to deal with from your side? And then from there, you need to look at the outputs that you're going to give them with the client relationship. Plans and relationship funnels. What's your value proposition? What's theirs? What pursuit plans are you going to put into place to go after these clients? What team are you going to put together? What account management plan have you got? And therefore, what funnel opportunities and velocity management are you going to have to go through them? And then you can expect a lot bigger and a lot more opportunities within that client. You'll get a faster revenue growth. You'll get higher margins, long-term account stability. You get improved competitive position, client advocates, and you'll train their staff. You get longer retention. So if you do have a strategic account management plan, that's what you get. You need to understand their issues and then relationships, as I said. So strategic account management is huge, and it differs from account to account, obviously, so you have to go through that to understand it. Here's your relationship commitment. You can go from a vendor to a strategic business advisor and everything in between. And I'm not going to step through that because this is a big part of how you can step through this. As you can see, the breadth of the business issues is on the horizontal axis, and the depth of the business relationship is on the top. You go from tactical to strategic issues. Not every client wants you to be this, but these are important to know. Then you've got your marketing framework that we talked about. You must understand, I've developed this value results relationships. You have to show the value you're going to bring to a client and what results they're going to get, which is the value, and that'll help you build the relationship. So internally in yourself, you got prospect marketing, client development, and you also need a supportive organization with expert coaching to lead to these results that you're going to get, okay? So you need a marketing framework. That's what we talked about. So let's look at the 5 pillars recap. The foundation, the process, marketing elements, selling elements, account management. As you can see, B2B marketing selling is a very sophisticated and complex process, but it can be simplified, and once you know how to do it, it really makes it a lot easier for you. There are no magic bullets for B2B selling market, and somebody who tells you that, then, I'm not going to, sometimes there are ways to, once you do this, there are better ways and quicker ways to do things, like calling high as an example, as opposed to waiting for somebody to call you, and understanding what value you bring, understanding what results you can give them. But now if I could show you a system that helps you navigate through this complexity, a system that will give you short and long-term results. When I say short, it's not going to be tomorrow, but it could be in a month or two, and then long-term results based on how you work with your accounts. Let you consistently get new business, let you drive more business from your existing accounts by going through that strategic account management that I showed you, and let you charge higher prices because you then become a strategic partner with your client as opposed to a vendor. And how important is that for building business? When they call you, when I worked with IBM, we used to do the account plans, not the account plans, sorry, the strategic plan for IT every year with the client. And so we used to be the facilitator. How important do you think that was for the account? They still do at IBM. So you must be try and work your way to become a strategic advisor to the client as opposed to just a vendor. So here's my coaching system that I want to deliver you. I'm going to talk to you about the foundation, the process, the B2B marketing elements, the B2B selling elements. That's what I'm going to offer, this coaching program I'm going to offer you today at an unbelievable price for you to sign up for, because it is value. The value you get for this is unbelievable. I'm not going to do account management because account management is separate unto itself in the sense that you need to do account management with each different client or prospect that you have if it's a bigger prospect. So not one size fits all for all of that. Not one size fits this either, depending on what you're selling, as I mentioned. But all of these elements come into play, and it's important to understand what they are and how you can work your way through it. So module 1, we talk about what we talked about in the process, the foundation, marketing, buying personas, important. I give you all the information on buyer goals, buyer issues, what's your value proposition, how to develop that, what makes you different in understanding your competition, the process, what are the 5 buying stages. Yes, I've just gone through them, but you need to understand them fully. How can you influence the influencers? That's important to know. How do you build social proof? Most people have what they call case studies and testimonies. A lot of people do, but they're awful. They don't differentiate you. That's what you've got to do. Why your clients buy. We talked about that, the 5 different reasons. And lead nurturing. How do you differentiate between a marketing lead and a sales lead, a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead? And one thing I always talk about is always get to know before you get to yes. Always get to NO before you get to YES. Because if you do that, you don't waste all your time. And too many salespeople and marketers have oh boy, I think I've got a hot prospect here, and they have nothing just because this person listened to them. So you have to understand lead nurturing and why they buy. Then the marketing elements, we talked about that. You got to make sure your website has the 10 elements involved in it. You got your right content marketing. You're using LinkedIn properly. You know how to do YouTube and upload YouTube videos and how to put them on your website. You understand Twitter and how to use it, and Google+, email marketing. Run webinars like this. They're important to get people involved. Pay-per-click campaigns. How do you do them? Run seminars. They're important. Do speaking. Do different events. So you have to understand all of these marketing elements, and I'm going to step you through each one of these as part of the coaching program. Qualifying. The game plan is so important. How to qualify people. How to find and develop issues. I have a whole process that helps you define and help develop issues based upon goals. How to give demos. There's a good way to give demos and a wrong way to give demos. And most people give demos like this, too much of a product dump. But we've only got a certain amount of time, and it's hard to interface right now. How to avoid proposals and how to create good proposals. We'll talk about that because these are important. Questioning is so important, and questioning the right person is so important. How to close. What questions do you ask to make sure you close properly, and how do you develop these relationships? Part of that is accounts management, but part of it is going through all of this information. So as you can see, these programs are important. And I'm going to deliver Module 1 on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, Module 2 Thursday, Module 3 the following Tuesday, Module 4 then, and all your questions will be answered through a Q&A. So what do you get in all of this program, these 4 pillars for B2B? What are you going to get in that? Well, you're going to get in-depth information on all the modules. Okay, I'm going to step you through all of the modules. You're going to get videos on each factor, not just the pillars, but each factor within those in those pillars. You're going to get a video on each one. You're going to get templates and worksheets on each one and how to work your way through it. And you're going to get questions and be able to ask questions all the way through it, and I'm going to give you the answer. I don't know where you're going to find a better value than this anywhere. And you can see how in-depth this information is and what you're going to get out of it. And it's a system to help you grow your business. You need systems. If you sell technology, you've got a system. If you sell a service, you've got a system that it steps people through it for them. You need a system for marketing and sales, particularly in today's so connected and so sophisticated and complicated marketplace. You need a system, and this system is it. This is what you need. Now, because this is the first time I'm offering this program like this, and because you came to this webinar, I'm going to offer this program at a very, very, very special price for you if you're interested. I usually charge thousands of dollars for coaching. I mean, I've charged $5,000 a day sometimes for coaching. Many times it's $5,000 or $10,000 a month, which includes maybe 4 to 6 days, 8 days a month, a few hours a month. I usually charge thousands of dollars for that. But because you're on this webinar, and I think this is so important for you to know and for you to understand, this whole program I'm offering is only $397 for all 4 modules. You get everything, as I mentioned. You get the templates. You get the worksheets. You're going to get videos on all of this. I'm going to answer all your questions, but you must understand this is a one-time offer. This is one I'm offering after this webinar. I'm not going to do this again because this is an important webinar. And I need you to sign up before we start on Tuesday. Hopefully you'll do it right away today. So there's one more point. As I mentioned, I give a money-back 100% guarantee. And here's my guarantee. If after 1 year, you got 1 full year, you don't see the value in this, I'll give you back your money. And you keep all the information and knowledge I give you. Okay? I trust people. I think people, when they get good information, they're going to keep it and they're not going to ask for this. It's only less than $400. That's less than $100 a module. You are not going to find this information anywhere else. I don't care where you look. You may find it all, but you're not going to find it in a program like this, and particularly for this price. So what to do now? Well, if you want to grow, you need to know in the B2B space, you need this knowledge. As I mentioned, you won't find this, it's very difficult to find this knowledge all in one spot. And I guarantee you'll not get this anywhere else for this price. I guarantee it. I know people who charge $350 or $75 just to do buyer personas, and that's going to be part of one of this. So this is $397, less than $400, and this is everything you get. So what do you want? What am I going to ask you to do right now? Whoops. Push the wrong button again. Here's what I want you to do. Go here now to pay and sign up. And I'll send you the instructions, and then we'll talk next Tuesday about what we're going to do. Go to this website, http b2bbusinesscoach.com/blog/4pillars. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to put it in the question part of the, whoops. In here into the questions. So if you go to the question, where is it, box? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it in the chat area. Not, I hope. I'm having a real trouble with this. Sorry, I'm going to put it. Anyway, you can copy this down. Maybe I forgot to copy it. Oh, man. I'll try once more. Anyway, you can see it here on the page. I'll try once more to put it in the chat. Oh, there it is. Okay, 4 pillars. So there should be an S on the end of that. Okay? Oh, there it was. Okay. So it just didn't all fit in. So you can copy and paste that into your website, and you can go from there. Okay? If you have any questions, let's go through them right now.